Hi there, class. My name is Ryan Puck. I'm going to be taking you through the Anaerobic Exercise Leadership course this winter semester. So let's get right into it. The first lecture is going to be on foundations of effective coaching, leadership, and exercise. So, what is leadership? Leadership is having the power or ability to lead others. What else is a leader supposed to do? Well, as a leader or as a coach or trainer, it is our job to inspire our athletes, our clients, to push them beyond their limits or where they believe their limits are. In order to do so, we have to develop a level of trust with our clients, with our athletes. How do we do that? Well, there's a bunch of markers that come into play, and we'll get into that down the road. But one of the biggest things is you have to know your field. You have to believe in it so much that they know that your clients, your athletes, believe that you know it. How do you do this? Well, sad to say, once you get your degree, once you get your certification, the learning does not stop there. You're going to still have to go to conferences, you're still going to have to read journals, you're still going to have to read books, you're still going to have to stay current on all the literature, on all the different modes of training, because like we know since the dawn of time, things evolve, as do we. So, the moment you feel you know everything, your methods work, that's all she wrote. You're going to fall behind. People are going to sail past you. Clients, athletes are going to be looking to those people for help and not yourself. So, as a coach, as an athletic trainer, physical therapist, anything, you should always be striving to get information from anywhere you can to make it your own. You don't just have to look into the science books of lifting weights. You can be looking into running, dancing, yoga. Everything comes together and you can make it your own. So, a good leader has the ability to lead others, but they only follow you if they feel that you know what you're doing. So, Bruce Lee said, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. So, it's all about perspective. He learned so much. Here was a guy, he was a martial artist. He came to America with nothing. He had a strong background in fighting, martial arts, techniques, and all those things. He took that into the movie field, cinema. Became a big star there. He changed the style of fighting, the choreography in most movies. But here's a guy, he took what he knew, went with it, applied it in other areas, and he just developed a name for himself. Another thing this guy did was he studied a lot of different areas. He started looking into the sciences of physical training. He wasn't an exercise physiologist, he wasn't a strength coach, he just did it for the sake of it. He concluded that protein was a necessary requirement to training. He would actually put raw pieces of steak, beef, into his fruit smoothies because he knew the body needed that to help repair itself. He went out there, extrapolated information, took what he wanted, applied it, and he was always light years ahead of his time. So unfortunately, he passed away much too young. So, priorities of a leader, a coach, a trainer, should not be yourself. If you put your clients first, they will follow you. A client, your athletes are your number one priority. If they believe that you have their best interests in mind, you are doing everything you can for them, they will do anything you ask of them. Earning the trust of an athlete, of a client, is very difficult. And you have to establish that you want the best for them since day one. You got to handle them like a kid, like your kid. Not a kid, your kid. You know, if they feel that you're doing everything in your power to make them better, they'll let you do it. So, how do you become an effective leader, effective coach? Well, you have to have good communication skills, keeping things clear, simple, and specific. A common phrase, especially in this field, is the term KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. It's true. The more you say, the bigger the risk or chance for something to be misinterpreted and for things to go wrong. I'm a strength and conditioning specialist down in Tinton Falls, and I work with athletes at 6th grade all the way up to the elite level. Shockingly, their attention spans are somewhat within the same area. 7 seconds I have to work with and convey my point. So when I'm working with the younger ones, the kids in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I have to be very clear and to the point of what it is I want them to do. If I go too long, their eyes wander off, and now I'm repeating myself 6 or 7 times before we finally get the task done. Sometimes it is true, less is more. So, when you are talking to your client, when you're explaining something you need them to do, keep it really succinct and to the point. Also, use layman's terms. They know you know the stuff. That's the whole reason they're coming to you, is because, well, they're turning to you because they don't know any better. You don't need to show off and act like you know this, and the other thing. It's like, wow, it's really amazing. Just tell them what they need to hear. Keep it really in terms of how they would understand it. Because sometimes when you try to boast about how much you know, it can come across the wrong way. So, as a coach, you're going to have to give feedback. You're going to have to tell them what they're doing wrong, how things are going, but there's always a time and place for that. Now, granted, you see someone doing something wrong. Let's say we'll keep it all around the squat movement. You see someone squatting down low. They have the biggest round in their back. You know they're going to blow a disc. You can tell them to stop right then and there, rack the weight, step away, coach them up. But say now you have a client who's not doing horrible, there's no real risk of danger or injury, you let them bang out the set. So here's what happens. So athlete comes in, they're squatting, okay, you see a little bit of a forward lean, knees slightly going in. All right, they finish their reps, they rack the weight. Now here's a time where you want to give your technical cues, your feedback to the athlete. You want to give it to them immediately after their training. And once they've done the exercise, and not immediately after the training, immediately after they've done the exercise set. The feedback you give them needs to be very specific and to the point. And it isn't just you saying stuff to hear yourself talk. Don't just say things to make it look like you're coaching. Actually be an effective a coach. So, here's how it goes. Feedback needs to be delivered in this order. This is what you did. Okay, I saw your knees cave in. I saw your back rounding. That's no good. We have to correct that. All right? Give them a second to let it sink in. You don't want to overwhelm them with too many cues, because they might just freeze and they don't even know where to start. So give them 1 or 2 cues at the most. Okay, this is what I want you to do this time. When we go to squat, I want you to widen your feet. Keep your weight back on your heels and keep that chest up as we go down. Maybe don't go down as deep, and then you come back up. So chest up, knees out, weight back on your heels. Real simple. So now the athlete has done the movement, felt how it was wrong, and you immediately addressed it. Now, sometimes most clients and athletes, do a rep or two wrong. They'll feel it's wrong and try to correct it themselves. Let them do that. That's their way of educating their body. You can't always just be jumping in like a lifeguard when you think someone's splashing too much because they might be drowning. Everyone's not always drowning. Give them a second. Unless there's real danger involved, you don't have to step in right away. Okay. So the biggest thing as a coach, as a trainer, is your attitude. Your clients, your athletes will mirror your attitude. If you're always down in the gums, moody, angry, whatever, that's not going to be too inspirational. So having a positive attitude, a can-do attitude, will lift their spirits and make them more effective in their training program. There is a study, there is information out there that chemicals are released from the brain based on mood. When you're happy, more upbeat, different hormones are secreted. It actually makes you stronger, more effective, and more explosive, because your body's in a heightened state of arousal where everything's firing much more efficiently. Now, when you're down and out and depressed and moody and bummed out, you have no motivation. You don't want to be there. And then again, the firing and recruitment of muscle fibers is significantly altered. So, as a trainer, it's your responsibility to keep them motivated, keep them focused. They might have had a bad day, but you have to keep that stuff outside the door, and they're here now to train. You got to be the one that gets them going, gets their fires pumping. Having a training environment will make it much easier on you and on the athletes. So, as a coach, Personally, the most effective coach is the one who can walk the walk and not just say he does it. So, it brings to my first question. Is it fair to ask your clients or athletes to do something you can't do? No. If you can't do an exercise, if you can't do a movement yourself, you don't know how it feels, you don't know how it feels right, you can't effectively coach it or relate to your client or athlete. You need to be able to set the example for the people you train. Now, if you can't do a movement, that's fine. You don't have to be able to do everything. But do variations and things that you know you can do effectively. If you can instill a confidence in what you're doing with the exercise you do know, it doesn't matter. You don't need to have, if you can't do a back squat, but you can do a front squat, all right, you coach the heck out of how to do a front squat properly because you're not familiar with how to do proper back squatting form, in theory, though they're the same thing, almost. But keep it within your realm, what you know. Again, take what you do know, run with it. Be great at one thing rather than trying to averagely kind of know a bunch of other things. All right? So, if you can't do it yourself, there's no point in coaching it because you won't be as effective at coaching it. And it also comes through to your athlete or client that maybe this guy isn't the best person I should be working with. You know? If you need to know how to do the movement to avoid injury. So, why should leadership be important to you? Well, because they're looking to you for the answers. What are their goals? Most people, when they're training, looking to exercise, it's lose weight, get bigger. Sometimes, some actually are aware enough to say, I want to improve my quality of life, better mobility, better flexibility. And for athletes, it's like they want to get bigger, faster, stronger. So, the question is, how do we do this? Okay, well, you're in the class by getting stronger. How do we get stronger? Well, through anaerobic activity. So, but let's take a little sidestep here. We're still going forward. So before we get into getting someone stronger, we have to have them set some sort of goal. And most times, clients have outlandish goals of, I want to lose like 5 pounds by the weekend. Like, well, it's Thursday and it's 2 days away. It's highly unlikely of it being effective. But it's our job as coaches, as trainers, as athletic trainers, as professionals in our field to make sure that these goals are in fact attainable. Because if we try to shoot for something that's not, it's going to make us look bad and lose credibility. So, let's just take this as an example. So, guy comes in, he wants to lose 10 pounds a week. Well, that's highly unlikely. So, it's our job to kind of convince him this is a more reasonable way to attain that goal. So maybe we say, okay, maybe 10 pounds in a week is kind of rough, but why don't we shoot it to, let's try to lose 1 to 2 pounds every week for the next 2 months. That seems more attainable. Okay. Then you got to deal with the other issue of, people want to be thinner. People just want to have a six-pack and big defined arms, big chest. Okay, well, that's totally doable, but it's the time frame is where it comes into play that can really hinder this from happening and people from staying motivated to do. So as trainers, we have to be that motivational, trustworthy, go-to person. So what I like to do is give them additional goals to shoot for. So here's what we look into doing. So someone's coming in, they want to lose weight. All right, that's their number one goal. How about we try to make you stronger? All right. How about we try to improve your endurance? Okay, so we do some tests. We have them do a mile run. We have them do a basic push-up test, and then we, do a body fat assessment. Okay. After 4 weeks, all right, they've only lost maybe 4 pounds. Okay, they might be a little down and out. But hey, you've increased the number of reps you can do on a push-up, and you've knocked 30 to 45 seconds off your mile time. Okay, so maybe they didn't achieve one goal, but now they've achieved 2 other things to show that their training is in fact working. So it's finding ways to motivate, inspire your clients outside of what they want, while still keeping them on the same path as what they want. You want to keep them on the path, the success track all the time. You don't want to put them on a track that's unattainable. All right. So what is an aerobic exercise? Anaerobic exercise is high intensity, short bouts of exercise that target the ATP PCR system, or anaerobic glycolysis energy systems. This we'll dive into later on down the road, but keeping it very generalized right now. So, muscular strength, muscular power, and muscular endurance lasting under 2 minutes fall under this realm of anaerobic exercise. Anything more of that becomes aerobic, needing oxygen. So, and this works the body totally different. So, what we're trying to do with an anaerobic exercise, increase muscle size, make you more explosive, make you more powerful, as we said right here. So, moving on. What do all four of these people have in common? Well, baby, old, prosthetic. Well, they're still moving, they're still training. Baby wasn't this strong 3 weeks ago, could barely sit up, hold his head up, now he's crawling. Guy has prosthetic limb. At one point, he was probably bedridden and going through rehab, but now he's back to normal strength. Old woman, getting stronger each and every day. She knows she's getting older. She needs to stay on top of things. And this old guy, who some of us might know, Louis Simmons, deadlifting, probably a nice warm-up set for him. What does this all mean? Well, when it comes to training, you're going to have people with different goals, different priorities, all different backgrounds. So you're going to have to accommodate for that. So, principles of training, specificity. Exercise should be specific to the overall goals and demands of the individual. So, backtracking. So, this old lady right here might just want to be able to, not struggle as much getting out of her seat every day. Louis Simmons here, who's probably now late into his late 50s, early 60s, at age 51, he was squatting over 800 pounds and bench pressing 600 pounds. Maybe he wants to add an extra 50 or 100 pounds to both of those lifts. Significantly different training style than her. This baby just wants to be able to stand up. So, specificity. Exercises should be specific to the overall goals and demands of the individual. So you got to design a program for each person. Not every program will be the same. Overloading. Exercises need to progressively get harder to stress the body. So overload, real simple. Say every day you're in the weight room, you bench press 90 pounds. 4 common sets, 10 reps each and every day. All right, your body's going to adapt to that stress. You try to do more, what you're not going to be able to get any stronger. You come in, you do 95 pounds for 6 weeks. 4 sets of 10 reps. All right, you try 110 pounds. Okay, you get 2 reps. Now you go back down, see if you can get more in another 4 weeks. You do the same training style. Guarantee it's not going to do the same. If you do everything the same, your number won't change. So you need to progressively tax the body in new ways by adding load, pushing them beyond their comfort zone. So increasing intensity, increasing weight, increasing reps, increasing the sets, things along those lines. Very simple. So overload, increasing intensity. Individual differences. People react to exercises in different ways. This can be either their age, gender, or the sport they're training for. Swimmer won't train the same way as a football player. Soccer player won't train the same way as a baseball player. An old man, his body won't respond the same way as a college athlete will to resistance training. You have to account for certain things you can't see. Older gentleman, like I said, he might have heart issues. He might have ischemia. You have to account for that. The athlete might have a bum knee, torn ACL. You have to account for that too. So you might have to hit the same muscles the same way, but use different modes to train them. Adaptation. Exercises need to be varied over time. Aside from it becoming stagnant and boring to the client or athlete, you have to keep the body on its toes. So, real simple. Say you train, you want to increase your bench press. You're doing bench press 4-6 weeks. All right, you've hit a wall. Now it's time. Let's just change the incline, the angle in which we press. Now we're hitting the muscle at a different angle, increasing the rate and amount of motor units we're recruiting to execute that motion. Simple as that. Front squat becomes back squat, changing it up. And now the next step, most important principle, recovery. Yes, you tax your body, you break it down, you're killing yourself all week. This is where you make all your gains, the recovery, whether you're rolling out, stretching, treatment, sleep, rehydrating. This is it. All that stuff, you have to give your body time to recover, to heal itself. When you lift, you create micro tears in the muscle, micro fractures in the bone. They need to heal. Shin splints are just a constant pounding of an endurance athlete. If they run day in, day out, the bone never gets to heal and gets stronger. If you keep chipping away at it while it's in its weakened condition, it's eventually going to snap. So that is why when we train, we have to allow at least a 24, 48-hour window for our body to recover. Or why we can't train the same way day in, day out, back-to-back days. Then, the last thing we need to remember, reversibility. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So once we stop training, all those gains, all those peaks we've made, we will lose. Now, if you have trained and developed a good foundation, these losses will come back much faster than the average Joe who just sits on his couch day in and day out. So, by training, you stop, you can come back, but you can still lose it if you do not train regularly. Endurance will drop much faster than strength, but without training, you will lose both. So, everyone needs strength. Her boyfriend doesn't even squat. So I just took this slide out because most of us might know of the mirror lifters. Those are the people who lift from the waist up and only in the front. They neglect their lower half of the body. Why is it important to lift the entire body? Well, aside from staying balanced, you're increasing the amount of muscle, active tissue in your body. The more muscle you have, the better it is for you. Why? Well, it goes into this. Anaerobic training improves body composition. How? The amount of calories burned a day doesn't come from exercise. It comes from how high your resting metabolic rate is. The more active tissue you have, skeletal muscle, the more calories you're going to burn throughout the day. So if you look at fat, you look at muscle, fat just sits there, keeps you insulated, doesn't do a whole lot. It just weighs you down like it does nothing. Muscle is an active tissue. It's constantly working. It's constantly needing to repair itself. It needs energy. It's going to extrapolate that from wherever within the body. So, your basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate is simply the amount of calories your body needs to sustain itself throughout the day without doing anything. You can only exercise 1 to 2 hours a day, but you're burning calories all day. So the more active tissue you have, the more calories you're going to burn throughout the day. So aerobic training does not increase metabolic rate. Yes, because you're not looking to increase muscle size, the amount of active tissue. Aerobic exercise is more endurance-based, as we know. So muscle fiber size isn't as great, isn't as big. Every pound of muscle requires additional calories each day to simply maintain that muscle mass. So aerobic training doesn't tax the body to increase muscle size. Sometimes it can go the other way depending on how often and how intense your long endurance bouts are. So how do we increase muscle mass? Anaerobic exercise. To maximize the amount of calories burned each day, it is crucial to build and maintain muscle mass through anaerobic training. The more lean muscle we have, the more calories burned per day to maintain that muscle. So you become a more physically active, non-active person. You can sit around and burn calories doing nothing if you have more muscle mass. Now, I'm not saying you have to be the size of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but the more active you are, the more anaerobic training you do, the more active tissues you're going to develop and burn more fat. So the most common question is, well, doesn't aerobic training burn more calories per training session? Yes and no. If you're going out for a 50-mile run, then yeah, you're going to burn just as many calories as you would anaerobically. But look at it this way. You can burn just as much, if not more, calories anaerobically in half the time than you can aerobically. How so? Well, anaerobic training, whether it's sprints or full body weight training, you're forcing the muscle to contract at a much faster rate. So in order to develop greater amounts of power and force, the muscle is going to have to grow. So by this growth, that's more active tissue, bigger muscles, bigger gains. So simply put, let's compare two types of athlete, all at the elite level. We have anaerobic athletes, the sprinters up here, and aerobic athletes, cross-country marathoners. Both are great in their field, train hard, they probably put in the same amount of hours training a day. But now you can just look at their genetic makeup, their body makeup is totally different. You look at this marathon runner right here, significantly smaller than these three. Why is that? You go out for a run with a backpack on. After about 2 miles, you're going to say, this is pretty heavy. You're going to start to want to take some things out of that bag. Well, the body does the same thing. If it's going to be putting in long hauls, 20 miles a day, it's going to want to reduce the amount of load that it's carrying. That is why with endurance-based athletes, endurance training, those muscles are smaller but more fatigue resistant. Now, in the sprinter who's only going short duration for maybe 10 to minute 30 seconds, the body's like, okay, I can handle this load, but he needs to be more explosive, more forceful. Yeah, he has endurance muscles, type 1 muscles in him, but he's predominantly type 2. But you can just see in the comparison of the two, these two probably weigh the same, significantly more lean muscle mass than her, a lot more definition, just to keep it very superficial. But you can see significantly smaller limbs, less active, less muscle. So though these individuals right here might be storing a lot more fat because of the demands of their sport. They need to have more energy available for their body to use. They can use the energy from within the muscles because there's more of it. So, anaerobic training increases your metabolic rate, which increases total calories burned per day. Most calories are burned at rest. Trying to stress this over and over again could be a good hint. So, chronic aerobic training has been shown to increase cortisol levels. Okay, so this is it right here. Cortisol, it can cause the muscle to break down rather than grow. So this degradation of muscle lowers a person's resting metabolic rate because now you're reducing the size and the amount of muscle. This then can lead to fat storage because, again, like I said earlier, body doesn't have as much energy to pull from the muscle, so it needs to get it from somewhere else. So now it's going to start utilizing its fat stores, so it needs to start storing more fat because endurance runners use predominantly fat as their main fuel source for long endurance events. So there is a strong relationship between muscular strength and speed and power. Both athletic events require high levels of speed and power. So when we develop speed and power, we have to have the strength to handle it. In order to do so, muscles are going to have to grow. So just to put it into perspective, so you have a pitcher throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Throws that ball, he has to have the strength to be able to hold that shoulder in its socket. So the muscles need to be a little stronger, a little bigger. All right? That's where the anaerobic training really comes into play. Developing muscles to not only make you stronger and bigger, but also to protect you. The anaerobic training has been proven to have ergogenic effects for endurance athletes. So they can go out and sprint and do all the other fun stuff, but there is another anaerobic component to their training that they do incorporate. So this can increase the size of their slower twitch muscle fibers to give them a little bit more strength, that longer push at a higher intensity. So endurance and high levels of aerobic training can reduce the size of muscle, but when you incorporate anaerobic training, it can help maintain, if not build it up. So that being said, a quick overview of our field anaerobic training. Now, this is where it's time for you guys to be a little creative and tell me a little bit about yourselves. So I got into this field because I was an athlete. I was always getting injured, and I always liked the process of rehabilitation and everything like that. So that's what sparked my interest to get into this field and working with athletes. So what I'm asking now is nothing long, nothing that draining. Is just tell me what brought you into this field, why you're taking this class, and anything like hobbies or what your interest is in the health and fitness field. Something that makes you unique from the others is what I'm looking for. What is it you're looking to bring into this field down the road 10 years from now to make you stand out from the rest? Whether it's athletic training, physical therapy, personal training, strength and conditioning, whatever it is, let me know. Well, this is the first class of many. We'll see you next time.